Welcome back to Movie Moshow. Today we are going to review the action horror film, Blade. If you like our content, don't forget to like and subscribe. We post multiple times daily. Spoilers ahead. In 1967, a pregnant woman who is heavily bleeding from the neck is brought to a hospital. The paramedics believe that she was attacked by a particular animal. Her kid, a male, is delivered by emergency C-section just before she passes away. 30 years later, a young man named Dennis, Kenny Johnson, is traveling to an underground nightclub in Los Angeles that is bizarrely housed in a slaughterhouse with an attractive redhead named Raquel, Tracy Lords. Raquel leads the young man into the club after speaking Russian to the doorman. The man is perplexed and attempting to comprehend the club's rules. Some of the regulars ignore him and move on. Declaring he wants a drink, the sprinkler system suddenly activates, drenching everyone within in blood. He then understands, along with the audience, that every member of the club is a vampire. Dennis frantically tries to flee but ends up at the feet of a sinister man wearing a trench coat made of black leather. The vampires whisper, "It's the Daywalker," as they stare in wonder at this apparition. This is our first look at the vampire murderer Blade, Wesley Snipes. The vampires are shot by Blade with a shotgun, and when they are killed, they promptly burn to ashes. Blade uses a set of silver stakes to kill Raquel and additional vampires, including the disc jockey, after Raquel knocks the revolver out of his hands. All of the vampires will soon be either dead or gone, with the exception of Quinn, Donal Logue, a large vampire who Blade has presumably encountered before. Before confronting the final club member, the human man from the beginning, Blade pins Quinn to the wall and sets him on fire. Blade lets Dennis live and escapes as the cops arrive after discovering no signs of a vampire bite on him. Quinn is put out and brought to the neighborhood hospital. His blood is examined by a mortuary employee named Curtis, Tim Guinea, who then shows the results to Dr. Karen Jensen, and Bush Wright, who discovers several anomalies, including abnormally developed jaw muscles. Quinn comes back to life while they are discussing the test results and bites both medical professionals. Dr. Jensen is saved by Blade before he can finish her off, who also amputates one of Quinn's arms in the process. Blade leads Karen, who is traumatized and dangerously underweight, to his lair where he begs his mentor, an elderly man by the name of Whistler, Chris Christopherson, for assistance. Dr. Jensen is given an injection of a mixture of silver nitrate and garlic essence by Whistler, who says she has a 50-50 chance of recovering. A group of vampires are conversing in the background about Blade's most recent assault on their people. Evidently, Deacon Frost, Stephen Dorff, a vampire, owns this club and, to a lesser extent, Quinn. The other vampires, especially an older vampire by the name of Dragonetti, desire to maintain a peaceful coexistence, whereas Frost wants the vampires to completely govern the humans and utilize them as a source of sustenance. Because Frost is not a pure-blood vampire, i.e., was not born a vampire, but only became one through the bite of another, Dragonetti, Udo Kier, specifically does not like Frost. Frost is conceited as well, and he and his followers' actions bring unneeded attention to the vampire underworld. The following morning, Jensen wakes up and enters Blade's room. She looks at the intricate sword he is wielding and discovers that the grip is explosive. She then observes Whistler giving Blade an injection of some sort of liquid. Whistler confronts her and informs her that he and Blade are vampire hunters as she tries to flee. Naturally, Karen is skeptical, but Whistler continues by outlining the methods they employed to catch them. Vampires are very allergic to silver and garlic, as well as susceptible to sunlight in general and ultraviolet radiation in particular. In addition to filling up Blade's tank, Whistler provides him a fresh UV flashlight to utilize that night while hunting. Whistler also provides Karen with a small spray canister of vampire mace, a mixture of garlic and silver nitrate. Blade leaves Karen at her apartment, where she makes an effort to pack up and leave town. Officer Krieger, Kevin Patrick Walls, a police officer, approaches her and asks her about what happened at the hospital the night before as a pretext for attempting to assault her. Blade makes a comeback and defeats the policeman before he can kill the woman. Blade reveals that this officer is a familiar, a human slave that a vampire owns. They are also known as Renfields or Bug Eaters. Krieger will be transformed into a vampire if he completes a sequence of chores for one. Blade spots a tattoo on the back of the officer's neck that he refers to as a glyph and recognizes it as the signature of Deacon Frost. In an effort to trail Officer Krieger to another vampire club, Blade lets him walk free. Blade's intuition is correct, as he and Karen find a new underground club where they encounter Pearl, Eric Edwards, a morbidly obese vampire who keeps records. Deacon Frost is looking into old vampire predictions, according to Pearl, one of which specifically mentions a ritual and a being called La Magra. Whistler's enormous UV laser severely burns Pearl, and Blade takes some of Pearl's hard drive. The enormous pages from the Book of Erebus, the Vampire Bible, are discovered when Blade and Karen dig deeper into the vampire archives. They are unexpectedly assaulted by a pack of vampires led by Quinn, who has recovered from his injuries and grown his missing hand. Quinn tortures Blade in an effort to learn more about him and for his own entertainment, but he soon discovers that Blade is wearing a radio link. Whistler, who has been listening in the entire time, appears out of nowhere, blows a hole in the wall, and starts shooting at the vampires. Quinn's second hand is severed by Blade as the trio of heroes flee into the subway. Blade moves back and administers more serum as he and Karen board a passing subway car. Blade denies being a vampire when Karen questions whether he is one himself. Instead, Blade insists that he is something quite different. Officer Krieger arrives at a vampire club, where he informs Frost about Blade and his new alliance with the doctor, Karen. Frost feels remorse for allowing Blade to escape. By biting his throat, Frost turns on Krieger, allowing his girlfriend Mercury, Arlie Jover, to join him. Whistler discusses Blade's past to Karen back at the hideout. The infant seen in the opening scene was named Blade, and his mother had been attacked by a vampire just hours earlier. Whistler discovered Blade in the streets, feeding on the destitute, even after she had died. Due to the unusual circumstances surrounding his birth, Blade is a hybrid of human and vampire abilities. He can withstand the effects of silver and garlic, can walk outside in the daylight, hence the term daywalker used by other vampires, and has enhanced strength and healing abilities just like other vampires, but he also carries the vampire's thirst for blood. To stop Blade's desires, Whistler created a serum, but Blade's body is beginning to resist it. Whistler also talks about his own past. He was married with kids when a vampire kidnapped him and his family one evening while they were all at home. All of them were slaughtered by the vampire, but Whistler was still alive. Additionally, Blade reveals to Karen that Whistler is in the middle stages of cancer but is delaying receiving treatment in order to aid Blade in his fight against vampires. Whistler also discovers that Karen's treatment attempt failed and that she is getting closer to transforming into a vampire. Karen is determined to discover a solution for both herself and Blade, so she steals a few items from the hospital where she worked. She gives Blade the first thing she brings, an anticoagulant compound called EDTA, for use as a weapon after discovering that it reacts violently with vampire blood. Quinn is being reprimanded for his second failure while in the meantime at Frost's headquarters. Quinn is urged by Frost to go back out and find Blade still alive. Given that his master and all the other vampires have been attempting to murder Blade for a very long time, Quinn is perplexed by the command. After that, Frost kidnaps Mercury and his group of followers and drags Dragonetti to a beach shortly before dawn, where the older vampire is violently forced to have his fangs pulled out. Dragonetti is left to perish in the sun as Frost's group protects themselves with motorcycle helmets, dark clothing, and sunscreen. Frost approaches the remaining vampire council elders and asks them to volunteer 12 vampires for his La Magra project. Whistler and Karen talk about Karen's most recent effort at a cure as Blade makes additional hunting-related purchases. Karen is confident that the new formula will help her, but she is unclear how it will affect Blade because he was born a vampire. As Frost's supporters attack the fortress, Karen is kidnapped, and Whistler is savagely beaten by the vampires. Whistler is terribly hurt and afflicted by the vampire bites when Blade returns. Before loading up to raid Frost's stronghold, Blade helps Whistler commit suicide in a sad scene. Thank you for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe.